today's episode of my Triton, we're turning this to this. So in today's episode of my Triton, we are chucking on a used set of rims. We got these for $800 off Facebook Marketplace. We've got a set of Steely's Sunrayzers, and we got ourselves a set of BF Goodrich all-terrain. So a good pair of reliable, tried and tested tyres. Now it's important to note a few things when you are buying used steel rims. Obviously steel rims are used for off-roading purposes, and off-roading can lead to damage to the rim. Obviously when we go off-road, we do rock obstacles and sand and things, we let down tyre pressures, and that causes the tyre to compress at times and can lead to rocks and things being able to impact the rim. The beauty about steel rims like these is that you can obviously hammer out any of those dents if you're in a bit of a pickle, but you want to make sure that when you're buying these rims, they haven't been used and abused, dents haven't been hammered out too many times and weaken the structural integrity, and I just want to make sure things aren't cracked. These rims are, believe it or not, pretty good condition, a little dirty, but when you get the dirt off, they're still quite shiny, so they obviously haven't done that much crazy off-roading. Size-wise, 265/70 R16. Will this fit on an MR Triton? According to the tyre shop, it will, but we'll find out when we go and commence the installation process. As you can see, stock, we've got our 245 tyre, so smaller. The whole idea here is to gain a small amount of ground clearance, better traction because it's a better tyre, and a better looking rim realistically. Chuck on a nice set of wheels, changes the look of the whole car. Obviously, the car currently has quite a stock standard look for these stock Steelies. Nothing wrong with them, but yeah, not the look I'm going for. Generally with the MR Triton, you'd go more of a 265/75 R17 or R16. Obviously, the smaller the rim, the better, because you've got more tyre wall, therefore more area that touches the surface on which you're driving, better traction. It's important to note that if you have a Triton that has alloy wheels at the moment, you need to replace your wheel studs, and the reason being, the alloy wheels are obviously thicker than the stock Steelies that come with the Triton, therefore there is a longer wheel stud. In order to get a proper clamp and fitment of the wheel nut on the wheel stud, you want to obviously have a shorter one, otherwise you're going to have a small space, the wheel's not going to sit on properly. If you've got GLX that currently has steel rims like I do, nothing to worry about. And just a point to note as well, when you're jacking up your Triton, I jack it up using the rear diff, that way it compresses the suspension and lifts the vehicle. If you try to jack it up from the chassis, it'll flex, you'll drop that wheel, and the wheel will stay on the ground, the body will go up. So jack it off the rear diff in the right spot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to swish these rims around and see how much better the vehicle looks after. That's a filthy looking drum brake. Always do your lug nuts up with your hands before you start chucking any ratchet tools or wrenches on it. That way you don't strip your threads. Now one thing to note, when you're tightening up your lug nuts, obviously your tyre iron is good. You're going to do it up so tight. Get a bit of leverage in there. Extend your tyre iron, and you'll be able to tighten it up way more. Obviously professionals, they use special tools, they torque it up to a particular spec as far as I understand. But if you can just tighten it up with a bit of extra torque by hand, you'll be laughing. Now you might be wondering about ground clearance. What sort of difference is this going to make? Before I changed the rear tyres, the front and the rear of the vehicle were pretty much even, with the slight exception of a little bit of a difference because of the bull bar weight. As you can see now, the rear of the vehicle is sitting a fair bit higher than the front of the vehicle. So we're gaining a little bit more ground clearance, which is a good thing. So far, rims are fitting on nicely. Only concern here is obviously the rear wheel arches are bloody huge, so that's something. The front wheel arches are not so huge. So if we're gonna have any scrubbing or any impact, that's where we're gonna have problems. Now, one thing my father taught me when I was young, working on my old Honda Civic, was if you're jacking up your vehicle and you're taking off one of your tyres, make sure that when you take the tyre off, or when you've got another spare tyre and rim, chuck it under the vehicle, under the chassis, under the bash plate, whatever. That way, if the vehicle falls off your jack or your jack stand, it's got a fairly soft surface on which to fall, and you've got a space between the ground and the vehicle in which to slide a jack and re-raise the vehicle safely. So hopefully we've jacked her up enough. Now, to prevent what's happening here, spinning wheel, you can chock it or you can chuck it in full drive and prevent the wheel from spinning while it's on the jack. I'm gonna put these fairly tight, and then once I need to really torque them up, put the tyre back on the ground, problem solved. If you're jacking up your rear wheels at the same time, I always recommend putting the vehicle into full drive. That way, your vehicle's in gear, it cannot roll forwards because it is locked in by your gearbox. If the vehicle is in two-wheel drive and you jack up your rear wheels, there's a possibility that the vehicle could roll forwards.